Hey, this is Joseph from Spreadsheets Made Easy, and today I want to talk about the many uses of sum. When people think about the sum function, they usually think of it as just a very simple mathematical operation where they add together a bunch of numbers. What you may not realize though is that sum can be used for all sorts of different things. You can apply conditions to sum, you can use sum as a count, you can use sum as count a function, you could use sum as count if and count ifs, and sum if and sum ifs as well. And we're going to go over all of those things in this video, so let's get started. Before we begin, I'd like to mention that a lot of these formulas, actually every formula we're going to use in this video is an array formula. If you're not familiar with array formulas, please check out my blog post about array formulas for beginners. I'll include a link in the description and you can check out the post there. Alright, let's begin with the easy one, which is plain old sum. Simply just equals sum, grab your cells, close parentheses, control enter. There you go. Very straightforward. Everyone uses sum like this. Let's move on. Okay, let's say I have total sales per sales rep. This is very similar to sum if. So if I said equals sum if, open parentheses, the range would be this range here that I want to put a criteria against. So the sales rep, the criteria is that it equals John. Then the sum range will be the sales that match that criteria. Close parentheses, enter, and I'm left with 28,709. Okay, let's go ahead and do the same thing with sum. I'm going to say equals sum, open and close parentheses. The reason for that is because I'm going to have another set of open and close parentheses, and it's just easier to keep track of this if you open and close them right away. Now I'm going to say a condition, which is that the sales rep here equals John. Then I'm just going to times the sales. So I'm going to open and close parentheses again, just to have it in its own little area. Go ahead and select these guys. And I'm going to make this an array formula by hitting Control Shift Enter. And I get the same answer, 28,709. By the way, if you're not familiar with this syntax of creating a condition and then multiplying it by the sales, check out my previous video about Boolean logic and why it matters. I'll be sure to include a link in the description for that. Okay, now that I have that, I could just simply copy that down and I get all my total sales per sales rep just by using the sum function. Next, let's go ahead and talk about two conditions. We have sales in the West region per sales rep. Now I could do something like sum ifs, where I say, okay, the sum range is going to be here, and then I'm going to say criteria range 1 is going to be this equals John. Criteria range 2 is going to say this range here equals to West. Okay, and there you go. We have 19,045, and it's kind of a long formula. And let's go ahead and replace that with a sum formula. So I'm going to say equals sum. Again, I'm going to start creating open and close parentheses for multiple conditions just to make this a little bit easier on us. The first condition again is going to be that the sales rep equals John. Then I'm going to go ahead and say times open and close parentheses and say that the region equals West. And then I'm going to say times open close parentheses one last time, and the sales. Control Shift Enter on that, and there you go. 19,045 is the answer, just like we had before. Copy that down, and now you have your sales in the West region. So this is just like using sum ifs, where we said we want to see the sales per sales rep in the West region. All right, now let's go into number of sales. So this is going to be like using sum as if it were count. If I wanted to say count if, actually this is like a count if because we're saying number of sales per sales rep. So if I wanted to say count if, the range would be this range here, and the criteria is going to be John, close parentheses, and there you go. The count will be 3 for John. That'll be 3 sales for John. Now let's replace that with sum. So equals sum, open close parentheses again, and we're just to say the condition. First condition is going to be that the sales rep equals to John. And now instead of multiplying the sales, what we're going to do is just multiply by 1. And I'm going to say Control Shift Enter, and there you go, we have 3. Now the reason this works, I'm just going to click on formulas and evaluate formula over here. The reason this works is that when we expand out the sales rep equals to John, it's going to go through the array of all the cells and say, does John equal John for each one? We're going to end up with a set of true and falses. Now, each true represents 1 and each false represents 0. And when I multiply that by 1, we'll end up with a set of 1s and 0s, and then sum will just count up. It actually sums up each of these things, and it just ends up that each number, each hit that was a successful hit, meaning that the sales rep was John, is going to be equal to 1. And that just kind of sums up the ones that are there, and it's simulating a count function. So that's count of 3, and that's just replacing count if with this. Now, if I wanted to do something trickier, like say, okay, the number of sales in the West region per sales rep, I could just replace this formula here and add a different condition. So I can just simply open close parentheses and then just add that the region equals the West region, and then times that 1 again, Control Shift Enter, and now we have the number of sales in the West region. So this is like using count ifs, and it's a very handy way to just replace that with sum. Okay, before we wrap up, I want to go over one last thing, which is show you how to use sum like the count a function. If you're not familiar with the count a function, it basically will count all the items in a range, including text and dates, and it skips blank cells. So let me just show you here. I'm going to ruin our data. I'm going to put some text here, and I'm going to delete this guy. I'm going to convert this to a date over here. Perfect. Okay, now normally the count would be 8, as you can see down here. I could even make a simple function that just says count, and I'm going to go ahead and say, all right, so that's 7 because it only counts numbers, and dates counts as numbers, by the way. And then if I said count A, then it's going to count 8 because it's also including the text and skipping the blank as well. All right, now let's do this with sum. So equals sum, open close parentheses again, our favorite thing to do. And I'm going to go ahead and say where this, let's see, I'm going to say if it's not equal to blank, then I'm going to times by 1, Control Shift Enter to make an array, and there you go, just like the count a function. And there you have it. You can see that sum is used for many different things: regular sum, sum if, sum ifs, count, count if, count ifs, count a. It's just nice to see such a simple function be so versatile, and that's why I really like to use the sum function in a lot of different ways. I hope this video was helpful for you. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up. If you're new here, please subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.